All right, happy Saturday morning. Completely understanding we're roughly 45, 47 minutes late, but due to some technical difficulties we were having with the link and all, had to contact tech support. And let's get things settled because Restream is, we went from a different streaming program, a different streaming service to Restream. This was the first issue we ever had with Restream at all since we switched over to Restream, and their tech support was excellent, very timely, and they got right down to the root of the situation and got us up and going. So, shout out to Restream for helping us out. You guys are tremendous. All right, so man, listen, free agency. Last week we discussed the home team free agents as far as the guys. We had six offensive linemen, unrestricted free agents that were on that list, and a bunch of other players. Mm-hmm. Now we can get over to what's going on with league-wide free agency, because this is a team that has the issues that similar to what they had last offseason. There were some issues within this team, roster-wise, construction-wise, that did not get solved last offseason, and they wound up jumping into this season and rearing their ugly heads again. So I want to start out with one guy who may not be a Detroit Lion, but his contractual impact on the defensive tackle position and the rest of the league could be tremendous, and that's Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I do understand that Chris Jones, for a lot of people, they're kind of stuck on the fact that he's 29 and he'll be 30, not too soon, but he will be 30 soon, and everyone has a fear of signing free agents that's north of 30 or whatnot. Chris Jones is a little different, at least in my opinion. He's a guy who he doesn't just line up at nose tackle and just get beat up for 60 minutes. They move him around along that defensive line a decent amount. And for the most part, it's a lot of zone jump, it's a lot of stunts with him as well. So they're not just out there getting Chris Jones beat up. But I do understand the fact that people don't like signing guys north of 30, but you have to judge everything on a case-by-case basis. Mm-hmm. Chris Jones is showing no signs of slowing down at all. And if you're looking past just the Aaron Donald effect, which is if a guy isn't getting 17 sacks, 18 sacks on the interior of a defensive line, people kind of discredit the importance of the defensive tackle position. But you can make the argument that pound for pound, when it comes to the defensive line play in the NFL and the ability to make guys around you better, make sure those guys have statistical success and they reach their contractual obligations and they get their money, as well as being a big-time difference maker on your defense. Chris Jones is that guy pound for pound. You can make the argument that understanding that quarterback position is very important. You got guys like Kirk Cousins out there, Ryan Tannehill. You can make the argument that pound for pound, Chris Jones could be the best defensive, not just best defensive, but the best free agent available. So what are your thoughts on Chris Jones?
Yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment, man. Chris Jones is absolutely like the top guy, you know what I'm saying? And I think the Chiefs could be in jeopardy of losing him this year, you know what I'm saying? Because we don't know. I don't have their salary cap situation in front of me, you know what I'm saying? I know they do have some guys like a L'Jarius Sneed that they might want to keep around. You know what I'm saying? I think McDuffie's under rookie protection. I get another year, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I love George Karlaftis. Perfect guy to have on that line with him, and that makes everything better. We see it. We see as far as coverages, they could do a lot of different things, in coverage because they have Chris Jones. We've seen the impact. Listen, the Lions beat the Chiefs, early in the season, first game of the season without Chris Jones. He's that important to their team. You know what I'm saying? I think Steve Spagnuolo's got a lot to do with it too. For a guy who's won now 4 Super Bowls as defensive coordinator, knows how to use them. He's always had good interior linemen, and he's able to run his schemes and his work, man. I think that Chris Jones probably made 2 or 3 of the biggest plays of the Super Bowl and actually won the Super Bowl for him, man. Stopping that scoring drive in late in the Super Bowl. was able to, constantly wreak havoc in the backfield. You know what I'm saying? Making Brock Purdy uncomfortable. So we've seen it time and time again. It's not like it's a flash in the pan, just a one hit wonder type thing with him, man. You know what I'm saying? Chris Jones, like you said, he is by football elitists would say he's long in the tooth or he's getting up there, but man, he ain't got no signs of slowing down right now. You know what I'm saying? Chris Jones gonna be ready to play come this fall again, come training camp. He's a professional, he stay ready, and people were trying to say stuff about him because he was holding out with the Chiefs. I remember, thinking back, like, they're trying to question his character and saying he was a me guy. And, listen, when you one of the top D linemen in the league, you should be paid like it. You know what I'm saying? And he hasn't been. He's been taking a discount, you know what I'm saying, for the last couple of years. So I don't know. I think the only thing that the Chiefs have in there, they got the upper hand over him because he did hit free agency. So I wonder, is he going to get paid like he should? You know what I'm saying? I think the risk is for the Chiefs is you got to not overpay because you got other guys you have to pay on that defense. So right now, I mean, Chris Jones can be got, man, I think, for the right price. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think that the floodgates will open on Chris Jones. As far as our team, the Lions goes, listen, we've been talking ad nauseum for 2 years. We were saying it last year how good Chris Jones would look on our defensive line. But I just, given the track record of Brad Holmes, I don't know, man, Walt, if he would ever do a slam dunk blockbuster signing like this. You know what I'm saying? I think Brad Holmes will sign guys, but he's more, and we'll get into it more as this show goes on, but I don't think he's the kind of guy that makes a big splash like that. Like Dave Montgomery, we got 2 years.
I mean, it would be equivalent of the Green Bay Packers signing Reggie White. I know people may listen and say, wait a minute, you're comparing him to Reggie White. Let's be honest, man, this boy got 3 Super Bowl rings. Yeah. How many All-Pros he got? Like, Chris Jones is trailing towards being a Hall of Fame. Well, he's one of the best top 2, top 3 defensive tackles in football the last 4 or 5 years. And he got rings. Mm-hmm. And he's completely dominant on the biggest stages. Remember this. He played a huge role in the first time they beat San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And he played a big role in this matchup against San Francisco. And as you mentioned, that dude made big-time play after big-time play after big-time play against Frisco last week. And, I mean, it would, to me, a move like this, and I understand that, well, first of all, we don't know what Chris Jones wants. We don't know if he's looking for long-term security. We don't know if he's in a situation where he feels like, you know what, I won 3 rings with Kansas City, maybe like Tyreek Hill was. I won my time with Kansas City, even though Tyreek won 1. But in Chris Jones' situation, I already won my rings. Yep. I'm 30. Well, I'm fixing to be 30. He's 29 right now. Yeah. And now it's about me getting the money. I'll be a hired gun. If a team like Detroit wants to give me a 2-year deal, if you give him a 2-year deal, you're talking about paying him $60 million, though. You're going to at least pay Chris Jones $30 million for the next 2 years if you only want to rent him for 2 years. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I mean, I make the Reggie White comparison because, they went on to win 1 with Reggie in Green Bay.
Yeah, that's a damn good comparison. Yeah.
Yep, but when they got Reggie White, Reggie was still a hell of a player.
Yeah, oh yeah.
When they got Reggie White and a big-time difference maker, and to get to what the finances look like with Chris Jones right now, remember after they didn't – well, he chose not play. He set out week 1 against us, and boom, they lost, and he got money. He only made $19.5 million for last year, which was very low compared to his counterparts in the defensive tackle room. But you're looking at $19.5 million, which was defensive tackle rank, made him the 8th highest paid defensive tackle in football, which I believe was crazy. But market value for him, if you're looking at roughly at least 3 years, $85.5 million. So he's going to get offers. He's going to get a ton of offers because, yes, he's 29, but Chris Jones is still one hell of a player. So that $28.5 million that they've got him at right now when it comes to market value, I think Chris Jones flies past that. There's somebody that's going to give him 31. Like, if he's about, at the end of the day, the guaranteed money, that's a different story. And like I said, that may play more into the 2-year deal with him. But Chris Jones is worth it, bro. If you're talking about what Jeffrey Simmons got, if you're talking about what Quentin Williams got, he's better than both of them. And I love Jeffrey Simmons, but he's better than both of them. You look at what Aaron Donald got. We don't even have to compare Chris Jones' 2023 season to Aaron Donald's. And I'm not saying Aaron Donald had a bad season, but Aaron Donald, he seems to be trending in the other direction a little bit more right now in the Chris Jones.
Yeah,
Chris
and I
Jones,
get it.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, well, sorry, cut you off. I was gonna say, like, you could in the NFL when it goes south quick. You know what I'm saying? And people are again, what's up, Fidel? It's always like, you know what I mean? People try to jump it and say, well, this guy's getting old or this doesn't have it anymore. What's up, Avery? And that's not the case for Chris Jones. You know what I'm saying? I get it. When it happens, but for him,
but it hasn't yet.
It ain't happened yet, right? You're saying something that hasn't happened yet. So why even bring it up? Like you said, it's noticeable. Hell, we just played Aaron Donald. You know what I'm saying? And we seen like the kind of, not saying that he's there yet either, but like you said, he didn't really, wasn't the brute force in that game like people was thinking he was. You know what I'm saying? Man, yeah, what's up, Broken to it? I agree. I really do believe that he is the number one free agent. Like I said, the only thing with us is I wish we'll see, because like Fidel said, I think this is like the most exciting. I think a lot of teams have that, especially when you got teams that changing coaches or teams that were close or teams that was in the playoffs last year.
Yeah. Matthew Betts money.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's crazy how a free. I think the Lions, first of all, I think this is huge for them because now I think we uncharted territories we've never been in, right? So remember, I said I think all we need is probably 2 players, impact players, man, on defense, and I think it totally would change our team's fortunes, man. But like John just said, and we talked about that, John, during the pre-show, I just don't know if Brad Holmes is that kind of guy, man, that's going to just throw like an Albert Haynes. Remember Albert Hainsworth got like 120
from Washington.
Remember it? You know what I'm saying? And I just don't think Brad Holmes is like that. Brad Holmes is going to draft his guys. I think he'll pay his guys. You know what I'm saying? Like St. Brown, we hear rumbling. St. Brown's maybe up to $25 million a year. Over 3 years, $75 million. That's what I've been hearing for St. Brown. And I think he'll pay his guys, but I don't know if he'll pay other. Now he did with Sutton. That one was interesting because he did. Remember, Walt, and I give you credit. I mean, I don't think you liked the signing from the start last year when they signed him, but he did kind of overpay for Cam Sutton a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I do think what we're missing on the offensive defensive line, especially if we lose a guy like Jonah Jackson, if we lose, maybe Graham Glasgow don't come back, I think we do need a sure thing on the offensive defensive line. For me, let's just say I would rather have the 1 or 2 top D linemen on our squad than draft one this year. For me, I mean, I'm not in. We got Josh Pascal. We got guy like Broderick Martin that we've invested a 3rd round pick in, and we're still not saying that Broderick's a bust, but I'm saying we're still waiting on him to develop, and maybe this is the year it pops for him. Maybe Josh Pascal can get through a year and play 13 out of 17 games. You know what I'm saying? And then that's another guy. I want him in the fold. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of like they got rid of Okora. I think the Eagles just picked Julian Okora up, if I'm not mistaken. But, it's sort of like get rid of those. James Houston's another guy that, this is a big year for James Houston. So for me, if you was to ask me if I could get Chris Jones, absolutely Chris Jones. But, I would go Brian Burns. You know what I'm saying? Walt, that's my guy, man. You know what I'm saying? In a perfect world for me, if we couldn't get Chris Jones, I would say, hey, let's knock on Brian Burns' door. You know what I'm saying? Let's throw him 3-year deal, at what X amount of dollars or whatever it commands, which we can afford. And another thing, I think the salary cap, It mean when you're a good team, it means nothing. I think that you're gonna find a way to pay all your guys. When the team gets good, yeah, I think you maybe on the back end, you maybe backload the contract where they get less money in the back end of it. But I think in the grand scheme of things, you'll get the players you want. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really I think we got 60 something $1 million under the cap or something like that. I think that that's more than enough to, get your team straight. You know what I'm saying? For me. I listen, the question was
As long as you're not running the team to be cheap, and that's something we talked about in the pre-show. Like, I can understand wanting. I don't necessarily believe is really an ego thing with Holmes. Could it be? I'm not sure if that's what it is, but you have some GMs that like they're so completely about the draft because they want it to be about them. Now, there were some people that took that presser that he had a week ago, whether you feel like it was the wrong way from your point of view or his point of view or whatnot. And there were people who felt like it was self-serving, kind of like, okay, not necessarily, okay, it was the team, but it's about what I did. You guys didn't like my draft picks, but I told you this and I told you that, and boom, they did it because I know what I'm doing. And you have some GMs that look at the draft that way because if my team is as highly successful and 90% of the team came from my draft picks, is more so my success. But you don't want to keep guys around that you can completely upgrade from. That's the whole thing about it. And we discussed, and we're going to get to this position in a second, but we discussed one guy who we'll talk about in a minute, who we believe is a complete upgrade over another guy. But since you like this guy and he's part of your guy culture, you're going to keep him over somebody who's a complete upgrade. I don't want to see this team going the cheap direction, which is I have the ability to make my team better, but you cost more than I want. It don't even have to be astronomical numbers. It could be paying 14 mil for a decent receiver, which is sort of the going rate right now for a good receiver, a middle of the road receiver who's at a saying that ripe age, right in the middle of their prime. That's what you're going to pay those guys. But if you want everybody on the team to be making 8 mil a year, this and that, you're going to get what you pay for. There's going to be games where you're going to get railroaded by teams who don't take that approach and have more high-end talent than you. You don't want to get into the concept of paying try-hard guys elite guy money.
Yeah.
That's the big issue we have.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Well, I think that they would not even, I mean, it wouldn't even be like conceivable for the Lions to just stay pat. You know what I'm saying? It's almost inevitable that if not, they're not as smart as we think they are. If they think that, you know what I'm saying? If they think, okay, we can just do it all and just like play money ball out here, the football version of it. That's not how it works, man. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, I do think it's time, man. It's time right now. It's time to kick the door open. And I think that, if you can get a couple impact guys, I'm not, like you said, I'm not talking about another John Kaminsky. In all due respect, I like John Kaminsky. And I'm talking about another Josh Reynolds. I mean, if you was to tell me, I'm going to keep using Brian Burns. I like him. I'm going to say, if you could tell me we got Brian Burns and Calvin Ridley on as a receiver, that's a clear upgrade, dude, from what we had last. You know what I'm saying? And then we'll have to break the bank to do it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Brian Burns would command. Let me see. How old is Brian Burns? Brian Burns is, I got it written down, 25. So 3.4 million. I think that's his annual salary, annual per mil, 3.4 million. So it may cost you, I don't know, let's just say give him a little half, 50% rate. Let's just say, I don't know, you pay him 10 million. Let's just say you pay Brian Burns $10 million over 3 years or something. You know what I'm saying? Or 12 million. That's a clear upgrade from what Brian Burns was making. You know what I'm saying? So, and then our team is better. Just off the strength of that move right there. You know what I'm saying? If you're not holding the money tight to the vest and don't want to pay a guy, if you how is Calvin Ridley, I think, is a little bit older. Walt, I think Calvin Ridley's 29, I think. No, he's 30. Calvin Ridley's 30. That's the magic doom number. Like you said, when a player gets 30, people don't want to sign him. It could be like a Golden Tate type thing. You know what I'm saying? Where you get them and he's got some good years left. The first time Marvin Jones came around, you know what I'm saying? He was in his prime. I would sign Calvin Ridley for 2 years. And that's the window. Hell, Jared Goff, if you sign Goff, it's probably going to be 3 years, right? So you giving, Ridley to play with a veteran quarterback, a young and up and coming budding superstar. Look at our receiving core. I mean, when you look at Laporta, you look at Jameson Williams, look at St. Brown, look at Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, Walt, that's pretty damn impressive to come in here. Like, let's just say if you get a Calvin Ridley, T. Higgins would maybe cost a little bit more because he's a little bit more a little bit more big play threat. But what I'm saying is 1 or 2 moves like that, Walt, our team is clearly better. That's even before we even get into the draft. You know what I'm saying?
I agree, but I'm gonna say this too, and this goes back to what I was just saying about not even wanting to pay moderate money, because Brian Burns right now, the market value on Brian Burns is 21, almost 22 mil a year. That's kind of like, if you're looking at it for what it is, that's damn near a bargain. With the way the NFL is now, I think as fans, we have to stop viewing the NFL financially from a 1990s point of view, or even the early 2000s point of view. This is big money because everything evolves with every generation and every era. Mm-hmm. So people may look at it and say, oh, $20 million, I'll never pay any player that type of money. That's what the market is right now. Like, if you want a Brian Burns, if you want a guy that can walk into the room and damn near be a walking, standing 14 sacks within your defense at the age that he's at, that type of money per year is a damn near bargain. At the end of the day, you're not investing too much more money in the defense. If you look at the offensive and defensive comparison, they've invested, I believe, a little over 77 mil in the defense right now, in comparison to 115, 116 on the offense. Now, I do understand, like, you can look at the books when it comes to any team in the NFL, and the offensive players just make more money than defensive players. That's just the way it is. But, like, just getting back to Chris Jones before we move on to these wide receivers real quick. If you look at Chris Jones' production after missing week 1, because people say, oh, you know what? This is a dude he wasn't at camp. He wasn't doing nothing. He didn't play week 1 against us. He showed up week 2 against Jacksonville. He had a sack and a half. Dude finished with 14 sacks from the interior, which is crazy. And you look at the rest of his numbers, he had a total of 21 stops. He had 43 hurries, 18 quarterback hits, and he had a total of 75 pressures. 75 pressures.
Yeah, that's insane.
From the interior defensive line. It's just, listen, I understand, man. It's hard to pay a guy the type of money that you want to pay him, especially when you're looking at the fact that you got to pay Goff. But we talked about this with Goff 2 years ago. Like, if best case scenario at that time was that Goff turned out to be what he's turned out to be right here, and you got to pay him. Mm-hmm. If you had a young quarterback as the starter at that point in time to now, you could afford to pay a guy like Chris Jones because you got a quarterback that's on a rookie deal. But this is part of the downside when you have a quarterback who's actually good and you got to pay him, because you don't want to lowball him too much. Now, I think what else, and we'll discuss this in a later show, whether or not it's best for them to take care of Goff financially right now or wait, let him kind of bet on himself and you let him play out this next season. But that's just part of it, man. I mean, business-wise, when you go the young quarterback route, you have way more offensive flexibility, financial flexibility to build a really good team around him. And if you did go that route, let's say 2 years ago, wherever it was, whether it was Justin Fields or whoever it could have been that they could have picked, if you're good, you may not be in the NFC Championship right now, but you may have been better off long-term as far as paying everybody. But like I said, I'm not complaining about winning, because at the end of the day, we are winning. But all right, let's move on to your boy, man, because this is another position group I think a lot of people are going to have something to say about. And Calvin Ridley of Jacksonville, he's another dude sprinting towards 30. Now, for Lions fans who look at Ridley and say, oh, he's going to cost too much and he's 30 and this and that, he's getting ready to be 30. You got to remember, too, Ridley missed 2 years. Mm-hmm. So this was it his Yeah, past season was what his first season back,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
really had a hell of a season for Jacksonville. Now, I believe they doesn't have the market value listed for him on Spot Track right now, but I believe he made $9 million a year ago for Jacksonville. So Ridley putting on the show, he did himself a very, very solid service,
Yep.
performing the way he performed, even though Trevor Lawrence was inconsistent all season for Jacksonville. Ridley wasn't. Ridley had a hell of a season. He's an excellent route runner. He's sort of like a younger Amari, well, not younger, but he's very similar to Amari Cooper. And he's a quarterback's best friend, as you and I talked about in the pre-show. He's a guy that consistently gets open. He catches everything, and he can make plays downfield because he gets downfield off of route running and setting guys up, not necessarily just pure speed. You talking about possibly having to pay Calvin Ridley around – he made nine and a half last year. So you're talking about base salary, maybe 13, 14 mil. As I mentioned, that's kind of a bargain for a receiver of his caliber. If Calvin would have played those previous 2 years, Ridley, you're talking about Ridley being a $20 million receiver.
Yeah.
So is Ridley a guy that we could get for a little bit cheaper if the market doesn't unfold the way him and his agent plans for it? Could he be another Chauncey Gardner type or a DJ Chark type that says, you know what, I'll go to Detroit for a year. Y'all give me 15 mil for 1 year.
Yeah. Man, I would do that.
I'll prove myself. And if y'all want me 2025 off season, we can work on it then. But more than likely, you're talking about paying Jameson Williams and paying Amon-Ra St. Brown. So what do you think about Ridley? Because I know this was your number one guy at the receiver position.
Yeah, yep. Like I said, I like T. Higgins too, but I think Ridley is more realistic, you know what I'm saying, of what we trying to do. And I think he'd be perfect for our offense. And he played with a quarterback with a little similar traits, similar skill set like Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence, you know what I'm saying? Good running game. He had Travis Etienne at running back. So they kind of play some good tight end, Evan Ingram. So I think the Lions, I don't think I know the offensive line of ours is better than the Jacksonville Jaguars, but what I'm saying is I don't see where it would be a drop off, you know what I'm saying, where he come here like and have to learn a whole new system. I think they do a lot similar things we do. I think we do a lot of pre-snap movement a little bit more, but I think as far as him to go with what we already have, Ridley's a little bit taller than St. Brown. So, me, I like a little bit taller receiver, just to give the defenses a different look out there where we don't have a bunch of small guys running around like trying to get open. But Calvin Ridley's a guy, like you said, he's quarterback friendly, man. Especially he would be Jared Goff's. He would be another guy that would be, I don't want to say his best friend, but he would be a guy that could, like you said in the pre-show, constantly open. You know what I'm saying? He gets open all the time. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you're going to sign him to a long-term deal, but like you said, sort of like a DJ Chark type thing. Give him 2 years. You know what I'm saying? If he wants some stability and make it 2 years, I would do it, man. You know what I'm saying? At this point, I wouldn't overpay because, like I said, I do hold the draft too at high esteem. Tyler Boyd's another guy we're talked about that could be, but I think those guys may command a little bit more just because of the name. But like I said, Ridley, the other guy I had on this list to kind of compare to him is Michael Pittman Jr., I think, for the Colts too, Walt. But yeah, we talking about Ridley. I you know me, I want the move. I hope they do it because I think that it would be huge. He got a little swag to him too. I like that. To have you if you was to come into an off season with Ridley at receiver, minus Josh Reynolds, and there's nothing against Josh Reynolds. I just think we just need to upgrade the position. It's not because he dropped the ball in the champion. It's not because of that at all. It's just, and Josh Reynolds was very good. I got my Piston gear on. I got Josh Smith on the brain, but Josh Reynolds, he was great. You know what I'm saying, this season, Walt. I mean, he really was. I think he had 45 receptions.
I don't know about great.
I mean, he caught some.
He had some timely catches.
He caught some big passes, though.
Yeah, he did.
He bailed us out against the Bucks and the Dallas game. But to answer your question, Calvin Ridley, I would do it. Like I said, it's just that's a no-brainer for me. You know what I mean? We instantly upgrade our team with Ridley Jameson Williams, St. Brown, another year with Khalif Raymond and those. That's pretty good to me to add him to what we already have. So
yeah. And I love Calvin Ridley. I love the money. Roughly 13, 14 mil for 1 year for Ridley. Or if you're a team that's going to sign Ridley to 2 years, I don't think that's a problem at all because he's a high caliber player. He proved that. He missed 2 years and came back and became Trevor Lawrence's go-to guy. Dude didn't miss a beat. I understand he's 29, but he missed 2 years. So theoretically, he's still 27, right in the middle of his prime right there. Like I said, the only thing with Ridley is the fact that you got so much money that's about to get wrapped up in this receiver position with 2 guys. And that's us hoping that Jameson turns out. By the end of 2024 season, we hope we're having the problem of, damn, how are we going to pay Jameson and St. Brown? We hope we have that problem. Because if Jameson goes out and he explodes and becomes the dynamite that he was at Alabama, if Jameson Williams is a 14, 15, 16 touchdown guy, you don't let that hit free agency. So now you're talking about having 25 mil a year potentially wrapped up in St. Brown. Now you got to figure out a way to pay Jameson Williams. Given the fact that in a receiver room like that, Ridley would be the 3rd highest paid receiver at 13 to 14 mil for 1 year. That's if, he stuck around for a year or 2. But I just don't see them wrapping up that much money in the receiver room, considering the fact that they got so much money already wrapped up in the offense overall. One guy that I think would be more feasible, and I can almost guarantee, Van Jefferson, who spent, half a season with the Atlanta Falcons, they could bring him back. These are all guys that could possibly not even ultimately hit the market. Their teams may financially wrap them up and bring them back before they can even touch contracts around another team. But Van Jefferson is damn near a Josh Reynolds clone. Mm-hmm. He's younger. He's a little bit more explosive. I think he's a little more sure-handed. And you're talking about a guy who also is only going to command the market value for Van Jefferson is only 2.3 mil. Mm-hmm. This is pennies. Then you tie that with the fact that Van Jefferson, Brad Holmes was still in St. Louis. Brad Holmes was still in LA with the Rams the year that they drafted Van Jefferson. So he knows all about Van Jefferson back then in 2020.
Yeah.
And $2.3 million, bro, for 1 year. That's throwaway. That's throwaway money. Mm-hmm. That's complete throwaway money. And I see that being a move that there were rumors at the trade deadline that the Lions were interested in Van Jefferson. So to me, it just makes too much sense considering the prior history those 2 guys have with Brad Holmes and Van. The fact that he's a younger version of Josh Reynolds. Mm-hmm. The fact that he's an excellent route runner. He can do everything you need him to do. He's got good catch radius, ball skills. He's not that explosive, but he's a little bit more explosive than Josh Reynolds. And for me, like I said, it goes back to what we talked about at the opening of the show. Show me that you're not financially tied to people you like. Mm-hmm. In any business, you can't run any business based off of paying everybody that I like and being afraid to make upgrades. That's the whole thing about it. And guys who you pretty much drafted, raised, and groomed and turned them into players that they are today, or players that they may be a year or 2 from now, they need to understand this too. You don't get your feathers ruffled when your organization goes out and they pay somebody outside the organization to come in to play. And if your feelings is hurt as a player because your organization went out and paid somebody, instead of paying you that money, they paid somebody else that money because that player is better than you. And I hope that this culture doesn't have players who will take offense to the organization paying high-paid free agents, because at the end of the day, my responsibility to this organization is to win games and make sure we're a good organization for the next 10 years, not necessarily to protect egos. So I don't know if that has anything to play in it as well. Maybe guys in locker rooms look like, you know what, I did this, I did that. They could have gave me 28 mil a year. Anybody who has any inkling of football common sense knows that Chris Jones is Chris Jones. That's not Broderick Martin. That's not Benito Jones. That's not Isaiah Buggs. This guy right here is one of one. And if he can help me win, because at the end of the day, I want to keep my job as a GM. You don't keep your job as a GM unless you win. And you win for a long time. So, yeah, I just think Van Jefferson, he's dirt cheap.
Yeah, I like Van Jefferson. Yeah, yep. And
And
a good
he
route
helps.
runner too. Yep, good route runner. Like I said, I like everything about him, man. I didn't realize he was on the Falcons. That's how much he was like a non-fat Falcons. What was
Yeah,
they doing
it was
last year?
it was an under the radar trade. They
Yeah,
ran around the deadline. Yeah.
I didn't get what the Falcons. They had so many weapons. I don't know. Maybe Van Jefferson was hurt or something. I didn't even see him play for the Falcons, to be honest with you. I thought he was still on the Rams. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, like you said, just what you said. I like Van Jefferson too. A guy that can get open. You know what I'm saying? Got a little bit of a slither to him where you're not, kind of slippery dude. In the medium range to beyond 20 yards, guy that can get open as well. I just think another veteran receiver on the free agent market is a must for the Lions. I really do. I think that, people kind of think it's not needed because, like you said, we were good kind of in that area last year, but you're not getting better next year by keeping the same guys. That's how I've always felt. You know what I'm saying? So
You
you
mean in
have to.
particular that receiver room?
Yeah, exactly. The receiver room. Because I'm
Yeah, I
saying
agree.
if it's an opportunity to upgrade it, you do it. You know what I'm saying? You do it. Because especially look at the receiver rooms across our division. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's going to get better. You know what I'm saying? I think Packers, Vikings, Bears. I always say you gauge your team on what the other teams are doing as well. You know what I'm saying? And I think that everybody. I think the next year the NFC North is going to be a scoring division. I really do. I think it's going to be quarterback friendly. I think it's going to be offense top heavy. You know what I'm saying? So you really have to continue to go with the times. And then let's be honest, people are trying to do what the copycat what the Lions did. You know what I'm saying? Especially like maybe draft. Well, kind of the Packers kind of went that route with getting Tucker Kraft and getting. A couple guys, I can't think of the other tight end that they got off the top of my head, but they drafted two tight ends. They didn't draft a running back, but they got the receiver last year. So it's almost like every team is kind of copycatting what we're kind of doing, and it's like we got to stay the course, man, and continue to get better. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, just because you was good in one area doesn't mean you don't have to not draft a guy at that same position or not draft a player at said position because you never know. I mean, I think we all know that Brad Holmes has been successful in the draft, but I think that free agency now, we see a lot of people saying that Brad Holmes is not known for really hitting home runs yet in free agency. So, and then let's be honest, maybe like so,
Well, he a free agent too, if I'm not mistaken. Equanimous. I can't believe I
yeah,
said
I'm
that
not
man's first name
not
that
in.
fluid.
Yeah. I'm not
But that's his
interested
brother
in
though,
not
man. Are they about to pull
no
go
way.
pull a Giannis?
Yeah.
They gonna bring Thanos over here? No, man. Equanimous is a better player at his sport than Thanos is. Even though Thanos did hit them boys with a sham god the other night. Screwed me up, boy. You could tell when he got that, man. You can tell when Thanos got that ball.
He was
Man,
he was
I've been practicing this move.
right. I had a bet with my brother that I would. Nah, man.
You ain't gonna
Nah.
do it. I bet you if you get in the game, you ain't gonna do it. Bullshit. I'm gonna do it. That boy got that boy, and Sham got at him. But yeah, you know what, man? I will say this though, and we're gonna discuss this in a little while because the receiver position could be something that they could say, you know what, we'll get another young guy in the draft, another cheap young guy. But all right, let's stick on the offensive side of the ball, man. I want to talk about the guys up front. In particular, the guard position. Now, of course, we know Graham is up. That's versatility between center and guard. The guy everybody hates. It seems like we've had everybody didn't hate Glasgow, but it seems like every offseason, at least the last two off seasons, we've had Evan Brown, who the fan base turned on to decide they hated, who was oddly enough a free agent this year again.
Yeah, he
I
signed 1
think,
year with Seattle, right? It was just a 1 year deal.
yep.
Yeah.
And then you got Jonah, who everybody seems to hate. You got Vitae, who's probably heading towards retirement. So the interior of this offensive line, I think, is vital.
Got to
Everybody
be
knows
addressed.
I'm very, very big on the offensive line. And if you look at Robert Hunt for the Dolphins, I know a lot of Lions fans, football fans in general, aren't familiar with Robert Hunt. Get familiar with it. Now, the Miami Dolphins they may bring him back. I think it would be foolish to not bring him back because at the end of the day, he was your best offensive lineman past 3 seasons since he stepped in as a rookie. So
You're Rob. Rob.
you hated who from the start, man?
Is he talking about Graham Glasgow? Is that what he's
Graham.
talking about? I
Yeah, I
think.
mean, man, listen, Graham helped us out, man. We ain't gonna do Graham. We ain't gonna do Graham like that. I heard his
Yeah.
nickname. I ain't gonna get into that though. I ain't gonna insult that
No.
man. But no, I think Robert Hunt, and people gonna look at Robert Hunt's numbers and say
Yeah.
it's not worth it. Bullshit.
Yeah, he's 20
Because
years old. He under 30. Yeah.
you got to keep this offensive line together, bro. And if you look at the fact that we could possibly lose 3 guards, 3 swing guards at the end of the day in free agency. Source Doll, I understand Source Doll's here, so Source Doll is going to play a bigger role next season. But Penei Sewell, he's the crown jewel of the offensive line. Frank is going through the injury issues he's been going through the past couple seasons. And Taylor Decker is a guy that cannot be getting another deal. Unless he's a guy who's going to say, you know what, I'm this age. I forgot how old Taylor Decker is right now, but Taylor's a guy who could take less money to stay here.
Yeah,
he could.
His cap number, what, $9.5 million? I think it's this year, Taylor Decker. But you know what? While you looked it up, I was just gonna say one guy. I like Robert Hunt too. That I like him. I was gonna say one guy I didn't mention when you asked me to give you my list was Mekhi Becton. Man, I think Mekhi Becton. You don't like Mekhi Becton? 25 years old.
When is Mekhi ever healthy?
Okay, there we go. I think we can Antonio McDice him, man, and rehab him and bring him back. And I think Mekhi Becton would be. He is a mountain of a dude, man. Played Graham Glasgow spot. I think that
how I feel about abnormal size athletes, man.
Yeah, but we it's time to take a chance on one of them guys, man. If it work out, I think it'll be high risk, high reward, what you call it. But I like Robert Hunt too. But I just wanted to put Becton out there. I didn't mean to hit you with that.
Oh no, I mean Becton out there at tackle, but I think guard is starting now. We have to make sure we keep Penei Sewell insulated with quality players, and I just think that allowing this Frank Ragnow thing, because we also discussed another guy, or soon to be rookie for that matter, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon. A guy who can play some center, and if you need him to play guard next season while Frank plays perhaps his last season as center, you can do that. And then after Frank's gone, you can just take Jackson Powers Johnson and just move him over to center, which is a natural position. But people are gonna look at Robert Hunt and say, "Man, I'm not paying the guard that much money." Market value for Robert Hunt is $11.8 million, so virtually $12 million. You're looking at paying him roughly 4 years, $47 million. Depending on what other teams decide to offer him. And if you look at his numbers in pass protection, if you look at his salary based off age and compare it to other teams, or at least other players, he's very comparable. They have on here with Quentin Nelson, Connor McGovern, Nick Gates, and Phil Haynes. And you mentioned Phil Haynes in the pre-show, matter of fact. So I'm a guy that views the offensive line as a top priority. Same thing with the defensive line. And for a team like us that's built off of running the football, play action, quick strike off, not necessarily quick strike offense, but quick strike pass game, getting the ball out of Jared Goff's hands real quick, you got to keep a quality offensive line. And I don't care. If I can get the number 1 guard in free agency at the age that he's at and put him on the right side of my offensive line next to Penei for the next 3-4 years, I'm gonna do it. So if I got to pay Robert Hunt $13 million, overpay a little bit, which still wouldn't make him the highest paid guard in the football, but he's a guy that's worth it, and he's been the Miami Dolphins' best offensive lineman for the last 3 years.
Yeah, I totally agree, Walt. Because you gotta have guys that you can trust. The Lions do on this offensive line, because we all know Jared Goff, he needs to have a competent veteran offensive line, man. Yep, and Broken Two just said it. I mean, because it's going to be huge. It would be incredible to have him. You know what I'm saying? Because people just don't realize the importance to having that. I think the one thing the Lions held their hat on, well, the last 2 years, but last year expectedly, most recent, because they had their offensive line. That was the one thing where we can line up against any team and play. Okay, because the offensive line was on par where everybody, the continuity was there. And I remember some guys did miss some games. Glasgow was a good signing, to sign him at the end of free agency last year to kind of solidify. And we needed Graham Glasgow, you know what I'm saying? Because injuries occurred. Big V never kind of materialized his time in Detroit. So yeah, well, I think that to have Robert Hunt would absolutely solidify, like, a guy like Zoe just said, like, for the money that you're going to pay, I don't think you'd have to worry about a drop off. You know what I'm saying? Like putting a rookie in there, or like you said, Kobe Sorstall, I don't think he's ready yet. He's a good rotational guy, but he's not a guy that I think that's ready to go 17 games yet, you know what I'm saying, and play that position or shuffle the offensive line again. I think you need to have the most continuity as possible. And we just said that, that much as the team needs to stay the same, it should change a little bit. I on the offensive line, I think it's got to be around the same, because I think that's giving continuity to Jared Goff. I think the running backs could still have a huge year, just like they did this year. The offensive line is priority number one, I think, more so than the D line. I think that the offense has got to be clicking on all cylinders for us to do what we need to do, next season. So if you was to tell me, we lost, Glasgow, or, even Jonah Jackson, and we had to like shuffle the line and then bring in Robert Hunt, I think it wouldn't be that big of a drop off. You know what I'm saying? He's a good football player, man. 28 years old. I think his annual salary was at 2 million was his annual per year salary. So, like you said, it'd be cheap. I mean, it's peanuts. We talking like money wise. So I don't think you'd have to overpay for him. Like you say, you're only doing it for 2 years anyways. You know what I'm saying? As long as Jared Goff's here 2 or 3 more years, that's when you can keep the line, somewhat older. And then when Goff finally moves on, we get another quarterback, then that's when you kind of shuffling, and then Sewell will be the elder statesman of the group, and then you kind of rebuild it again after that. You know what I'm saying? So
I think Trey Turner's another guy. Like when I went through the free agency list, I looked and I said, that's somebody Brad Holmes would sign. Trey Turner, he's getting a little up in age though. But if you're looking for a vet that you can get for 1 year, maybe 1.5, 1.6, a guy that can step in, can play either guard position, super seasoned vet, knows exactly what his role is going to be on this team. He's a guy, like I said, you can almost guarantee that they're going to shop on the Dollar General rack. They're going to shop there a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that, because you get unpredicted injuries a lot when it comes to the offensive line throughout the season. We've seen that the last 2 years, and the reason our offensive line hasn't missed a beat when they went through injuries in that room is the fact that they've had the right amount of depth. And whether Trey Turner comes in and starts, because more than likely Kobe Sorstall is going to start at either left or right guard. So even if Trey Turner doesn't come in and start, you must have guys like him in that room, because injuries are going to happen. That's just how it is when it comes to the offensive line. So any other offensive lineman in free agency that you believe could be targets?
Yeah, yep. I got Ezra Cleveland. I picked him for the Jaguars.
Former Boise State player.
Yep. And then I also got on my list here Nick Allegretti, from the Chiefs, man. You know what I'm saying? He's a guy, 27 years old. He's played a lot of snaps, for his age, you know what I mean? And I think he's well seasoned. That's another guy, the Lions could sign either one of those guys in addition to Robert Hunt as well, put him on a list, and they'd instantly be like, it would be an upgrade, you know what I'm saying, for what they have. So it's time, when you are, a good team, a Super Bowl contender team, which I think everybody can agree now. The Lions are a Super Bowl contender team going into next year. You gotta pay for guard. Maybe the less sexy pick. Sometimes it's not the 5-year, $100 million contract to the receiver, right? Sometimes it's like you said, 3-year, $18 million to your right guard to solidify that position and keep the running game tight. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm totally on board with this. I mean, this a no brainer for me. If you tell me I can get Robert Hunt and replace Graham Glasgow Vitae, who never really played, that's an upgrade. That's better for your quarterback. That's better for your running game, and it's better for play calling. So,
what kind of signs do you see it showing if they don't really attack the offensive line in free agency?
I could see,
Is
first
that
of all,
offensive line at pick 29 potentially, or even if they don't decide to stay at pick 29, because I don't think they will.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people around the town thinks that they won't trade out of 29 because the draft is here and they have to have a draft pick on opening night. I think that's BS. I think Brad Holmes' number one responsibility is to do his best for this team. And if he gets the right phone call for that 29th pick, do you really think he's going to say, no, I'm not picking up an extra second. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that, because we have to make sure this fan base sees a player walk across the stage opening night. Like, I just can't see it, man. So do you think that offensive line could be one of their first picks if they don't really attack in free agency?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Absolutely. People don't want to hear that, over a defensive lineman, you know what I'm saying, or corner. But again, like I said, that's the lifeblood of your team, man. And then everybody knows that's watching this podcast. Everybody knows when the draft comes, it's a certain position that starts going in the draft, right? Like if the offensive linemen start flying off the board, trust me, Brad Holmes is going to get one of them linemen. Or if a cornerback position start to go off the board, you can't stay and wait, or unless you got another. Now, this is the only thing I don't know to believe Brad Holmes or not, because remember he said that he had Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta was on their board. Like all three of those guys was on their board, whether you believe them or not. I mean, I believe it. We believed it with the Gibbs pick from where they picked them. They had to believe Jahmyr Gibbs was like one of their top 2 picks that they wanted, you know what I'm saying, other than Devin Witherspoon. So, yeah, and to answer your question, Walt, I believe yes. I mean, if their guy is gone, let's just say Tyler Guyton, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, the lineman that's tops.
Oklahoma.
Tyler Guyton, Jackson Power Johnson, and it's another guy I can't think of top of my head. Anyways, let's just say those guys go, yes, you trade out of that pick and then get more picks, and then you go and attack another position. Or
what though? One thing Brad has proven over these first 3 drafts is that he ain't waiting around for shit. So if he thinks a team is eyeing his guy, he'll trade up and
get him. Yeah, I like that about him. I like that. And then in the draft, while you have to be, I think this is the year more than any that, just like Fidel said, I think that everybody can all agree. I think the Lions are probably an impact D lineman away from really causing some havoc out there, right? Or an impact corner or AE offensive lineman. So now this is the year that you trade maybe next year's first round pick. Okay. Let's just say, Walt, to get the guy you want, and you say, hey, I'm giving you our pick next year. Okay. And that's gold in the draft these days, to give up a first round. I'm just making an example. Or let's just say you're giving up a second round pick next year or something to move up maybe 10 spots to get, Kool-Aid McKinstry, or a guy that if you think he's the impact guy,
whoever your guy is,
you do it. You know what I'm saying? Like me right now, I'm falling in love with Jared Verse, man. I've been watching tape on Jared Verse. I really like Jared Verse. I didn't like him like coming Florida State. I didn't really like him the start of this season, but he's everything I think the Lions need. Like from what I see, like this Darius Robinson scares me to death, man. He's like the what's the guy from the Raiders took last year. He reminds me of him a little bit. What was the
Tyree Jackson?
Tyree Wilson.
Not Tyree Jackson, Tyree Wilson.
Tyree Wilson. You know what I'm saying? Well, it's a bunch of guys at the bottom of this draft. Kyrie Jackson from Oregon. I like him at cornerback. I like it's about, I got 10 guys. We get into our draft talk later. I'm just excited about draft, but it's about 10 guys, Walt, I got on my list that I would either trade up or maybe accumulate more picks, and then you get a bunch of those guys maybe late in the second round, early third round or something like that. But yeah, getting back to the offensive line talk, I mean, it's just, for me, we have to continue, Walt, to make that a good area of our team. Okay. And like you said, if you stand pat and say, okay, we're just going to go in with the same guys we had last year and just like not even just neglect, let's just say we neglect the spot and we have done that. Remember, we had years where we didn't even get no new players on the offensive line. And I think it came back to bite us a little bit. So I think Brad Holmes is smart enough. He knows that part of it. And I think maybe he could be, listening to Ben Johnson, Campbell. You don't know what the conversations are behind closed doors, but to me, it's almost like, how much is Decker like? He's the wild card to me, because I don't know if you, like you said, is Decker going to take a pay cut, Walt? Is he actually going to do that? Or he did say that he wanted to end his career in Detroit. So usually that means take a pay cut, actually. So maybe you can get him to do, if Decker does that, that's huge, because that's giving him more flexibility. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree 1,000%. He is kind of like the wild card because he's still roughly a top 10, top 12 tackle in football. Not the best, not the greatest. Steady.
Steady.
He's steady at what he does. He's always been that hell of an athlete coming out of Ohio State. But Taylor been beat up a lot too. So I think a lot of these players, they hit the market and they but they understand that the market ain't what I thought it was going to be for me. Chauncey Gardner was a guy who went through that this past offseason. He figured, coming from Philly and the success that team had and what he did with the Saints, he was going to get bigger money. It didn't happen, but let's stick on that, man. Let's stick on that safety position. Matter of fact, let's move to the defense, because you got an interesting guy right here in Darnell Savage.
Yes, my guy.
Darnell Savage is interesting, man, because when he first came in the league with Green Bay, he was trending in being one of the best young safeties in football. The last couple seasons, due to injuries and some other bad play, things haven't really kept trending in that same direction for him. But he's interesting because we pretty much come to the agreement, you and I both, that Tracy's gone. Tracy Walker's gone. Mm-hmm. Chauncey Gardner, I don't know what the relationship is in the organization between them and him, how much they love him, locker room wise. Because listen, if you can keep Will Harris around, as long as you kept Will Harris around, simply because he was a culture guy.
Yeah.
Then, and I understand Will ain't making no damn where near the amount of money that Chauncey is, but I'm looking like, okay, you know what? Darnell Savage, regardless of whether he's a culture guy for them, Darnell Savage is a better football player than Will Harris. Mm-hmm. And you can get Darnell Savage for roughly 2.3, maybe $3 million for 1 year. A guy who can do a lot similar to what Kirby Joseph can do on the back end. He pretty much invites you defensively to run a lot more exotic coverages because of his athleticism, his ability to go sideline to sideline. He can also come up and run support. I just don't understand what really went wrong for him in Green Bay. But he ain't the only one. The other dude, the cornerback they drafted out of Georgia a couple years ago, he was another guy that looked like he was going to be a big-time star. Was it Stokes?
Yeah.
Yeah, Stokes was another guy that had a tremendous rookie season for them, and then he fell off too. So, but I get it, though. I like Darnell Savage. Savage is another reclamation project. Hey, listen, you come over here for 1 year for $2.3 million.
Yeah.
We're gonna give you the opportunity to win the job here.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking my language, bro. That's exactly how I felt, when I couldn't believe he was on the list. And I would take him over Chauncey Gardner. To me, I think he's more productive. Listen, Chauncey Gardner's great. Mask. Well, let's put the mask on and let's put our ski mask on. But it relatively didn't mount to anything in my book. You know what I'm saying? A lot of talking, but he got exposed a little bit to me in the NFC Championship game. I just think that Darnell Savage is a better player. I think you could get 2 or 3 years out of him and won't miss a beat, man. Him and actually Kirby Joseph, to go with Brian Branch, man, you got 3 guys back there, Walt, who willing to put the head up, support the run. Not so much Kirby Joseph, but I think Savage is sort of like Brian Branch in that regard a little bit. And he just a guy that's just a steady football player, man. You know what I'm saying? And he knows our division, he would probably be chomping at the bit to play against the Packers. That's another thing. You would inherit a guy from another team that's actually good. So, yeah, I like everything about Savage. I had his numbers here. I think Darnell Savage was how old was Darnell Savage? Man, I don't have it in front of me. I thought I had his age, but I know he's got to be. I know he's under 27. I think he's 26 or 27, which I do like too. So. Yeah, you know me, Walt. University of Maryland. I liked him at Maryland, and I thought he was the last pick of the first round the year he was drafted, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. And yeah, Savage is 26.
Yeah.
So like everything for what they like as an organization kind of falls into place for him. He's at that right age, that right sweet spot of his development mentally, because a lot of these safeties don't completely put together till around that age. Yeah. So he fits right into that room with Melifonwu and Kirby and Brian Branch, who is listed as a nickel but also plays safety. So I'm with you on this. And then he's cheap.
Yeah.
Which is right up their alley.
Yeah, if you was to tell me, Walt, if you was to tell me, minus Tracy Walker and CJ, and then you could get Melifonwu, sign him to a contract and sign Savage, we upgraded our team, man, period. You know what I'm saying? That's another spot that's taken care of. So, and you didn't have to break the bank to do it. So, I think it might have been, that was the only safety I had on my list, Walt. I think. Well,
me too, because I did think that, and you and I both mentioned we envisioned them potentially taking the safety later on in the draft at some point in time. Or they could go after a even cheaper safety, or maybe they may spend a little bit more money because we do understand how prevalent the safety position is within that 4-2-5 defense. So I think that's another group that they're going to make sure they take care of. Like I said, I'm with you 100%. You're kicking the tires on Darnell Savage. You're kind of betting cheaply on what he showed potential-wise when he first came in the league with Green Bay. Now, like I said, the last couple of years, things have been hit or miss with him. A lot of that due to injury. But like I said, I can agree 100%. I think Savage is a guy who could be on the radar, especially if they choose to not re-sign CD Deuce. And, you're looking at Tracy Walker, more than likely, a guy who got a bunch of DNPs towards the end of the season, not being back. Let's go over to the cornerback position, though, because I want to start with one guy you didn't mention, and I'm kind of surprised you didn't mention, Christian Fulton for Tennessee. Former LSU corner, big-time talent. Has that prototypical NFL size you want out of the corners right now. Long, athletic ball skills, competitive on the outside, can match up, can do a lot of those things that you want out of your number one corner for the most part. Younger than Cam Sutton, more talented than Cam Sutton. And I wrote it down because I was looking at the value for a guy like him, and you're looking at probably 3 years, 18 mil. So 6.5, 7 mil for a corner. You may be able to get Fulton for a little bit cheaper, but $6.5, $7 million for the most part, for a corner of his talent. And he's another guy that, he started out pretty decent for Tennessee. And, had some issues here or there. He may not hit the market. Tennessee may bring him back.
Yeah.
But I like Christian Fulton a lot. I do. And I think he's the type of corner we need to get in the building. And I got a couple more guys too. But did you have any thoughts on Christian Fulton?
He don't stand out to me. You know what I'm saying? He's a young guy. Like you said, potential's there. You know what I mean? I like the pedigree, from, college. But ultimately, I do think, what's his size, Walt? Is he 6'2"?
Christian Fulton like 6'1", 6'1.5",
6'1.5",
close to 200.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with it. I mean, for the standpoint is, I just don't. I'm tired of the little guys, and the Lions have went away from that the last couple of years. I give them credit for that, but yeah, I mean, I think I got a guy on my list a little bit that I would want over him, but like you said, maybe if you want to go to the bargain bin, you know what I'm saying, and say you want him for X amount of dollars, I can see that. Yeah, yeah. I won't. I would never say, a guy at that age with that size from where he already came. Tennessee's a pretty good organization. I mean, they're not very good right now, but you know what I'm saying. I think that if you're playing for the Titans, you're not a scrub, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they don't even draft guys that can't play. It's just for whatever reason, it's just a quarterback with them right now, and I think they got to retool the team. But yeah, as far as him, I know who he is. I think that he would be a welcome sight. You know what I'm saying? I think that he fits in our culture, what we trying to, like you said, you get a guy in a sweet spot like that on the second team and has been, just on the cusp of being a really, really productive player, I would absolutely do it. You know what I'm saying? Especially for, like you said, not breaking the bank to get him, especially. So
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it was so much stuff started going wrong in Tennessee. And they drafted some corner. They drafted was it Gary McGarry out of if I'm saying his last name right, out of Auburn. No disrespect. His name is kind of in and out with me, but he stepped in, played really well. They had some other guys they brought in that played really well. I think Fulton kind of got lost in the sauce with them. And like I said, Fulton could end up back in Tennessee. But if you're talking about getting a big athletic guy, and he's 6'1.5", 200 pounds, another guy that can get out there and compete on the boundary. And, it's whether he works out, best case scenario is that he works out and you got him for dirt cheap. And if you are going to bring him back for another year, you still not breaking the bank. So if I sign Christian Fulton for 1 year, and maybe that $3 million is fully guaranteed, maybe not. But if I get him on that type of tag and he really performs well and he restarts his career here with us in Detroit at that age, now I'm looking at giving him a deal for what, maybe $8 million, $9 million, still not having to break the bank for a guy like him. So
yeah, better than Jerry Jacobs, way better than Jerry Jacobs. You know what I'm saying? So
yep. Yeah. Another guy I want to talk about real quick, another veteran who to me makes a lot of sense, and that's Rock Ya-Sin. Played with the Colts last year on another 1-year deal. Was also playing with the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, was he with the Ravens? I think he came in with the Colts. Raiders.
Yeah, he's with the Raiders.
He's been around the last handful of seasons, but Rock Ya-Sin is another guy who can play in multiple coverages. You're talking about maybe a 1-year deal for $6 million. Not too much. Another guy that at his age, he helps. Mm-hmm. It all comes down to the direction that the team want to go in. Are you looking for just young guys? You're gonna draft it. You're gonna draft a young guy, maybe 2 young guys at the cornerback position. You're gonna sign a young guy in free agency. I don't know. Maybe they want more veterans. Maybe they plan on bringing back Emmanuel Mosley. I don't know, but I think Ya-Sin is another guy who's possible. And I'm just looking completely at the cheapness of what's going on because I'm gonna go back to this list I had. Isaac Yiadom, Yiadom, cornerback for the New Orleans Saints. He's been around a little bit, played really well out of the slot for the Saints with Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo being on the perimeter. You're looking at a guy market value 1 year, 1.5 mil. Why the hell not? Another guy, and if you hit on Isaac, Isaac, and everything is solid for you moving forward. So anybody you want to throw out there, if you want to comment on the guys that I did just mention?
Yeah, I just want to add Jalen Johnson is on the list. It may cost you a little bit more, you know what I'm saying? And I think people may be shaking their head no because we signed Cam Sutton last year to 2 or 3 year deal. I think with Jalen Johnson, it would be more he wants to be like locked up for some years. I think maybe a problem with him, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, he's on my list. Obviously, Jarius Sneed's on my list. I don't know. I think those guys may command more than we're willing to pay, but it would be good to get Jalen Johnson. I think he's right. I think Jalen Johnson can be got. I think he's not making a ton ton right now. 24 years old. I think his cap number was like 1.6 million. So that he a lock-up guy. I mean, we seen it firsthand twice. He locked our guys up, pretty good. So yeah, Rocky saying he don't really move the needle for me. I think he's on his third team. I mean, I'm kind of out on him, as a player, but um, I think it needs to be addressed though. The tricky part of it is depending on who it is, you might have to go to the well in the draft. And me and you've been kind of beating that drum last year about getting a cornerback in here, a young that's got some ball skills. I'm not talking about a undrafted guy who's a project who you're trying to make him into a corner. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a real cornerback. And I think that that's one of the issues, a glaring need on this team, man. You know what I'm saying? A guy who can cover, who could cover, Walt, you can put him out there. For everybody that wants to keep bashing Cam Sutton, I think that's kind of a little bit of it's unfair because he's not a first, a guy that you would put him out there on the island and say, guard this guy. You know what I'm saying? He's not like, that's not who he is. You know what I'm saying? So they need to find a guy who can cover one-on-one. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's easy said than done, but look at, the Chiefs blueprint of how to get a guy like that. You know what I'm saying? I did put Jordan Lewis on my list for the Cowboys a little bit, maybe, because I'm kind of familiar with him from here, but he is kind of a guy who made some plays early in his career, and it seemed like he needs a fresh start. You know what I'm saying? It just almost seems like that's another guy would be intriguing to bring him in here and then just put him out there on an Aaron Glenn based defense where he's sort of like not have to be the guy. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be the first round pick from Michigan. You could just be, a really good cornerback on this team. And I think that could speak volumes too, to get a guy like that. So, yeah, but a cornerback, Walt, is probably the second best need on this team. I mean, to be honest, I want like Joey Porter. Like last year, it was some really good corners last year. That not even talking about the Joey Porters of the world. We're talking about guys that went third and fourth round that we thought that the Lions could get. You know what I'm saying? And for whatever reason, they didn't take those guys. But what I'm saying is this may be the year to get a young cornerback, that you bring in your system and he can play. You know what I'm saying? Not a guy like Jerry Jacobs, all due respect. I want a guy who can play. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I don't know if getting another cornerback at $6 or $7 million, it might not even be worth it. The answer to the question may be just draft one. You know what I'm saying? And just
it could work if the ultimate plan is to just make sure the front seven is dominant. There, but I'm with you 100%, man. We've been watching too much of this shit for too long with this organization and not taking corners in the first round and drafting the wrong corner in the second round and the third round and having talent stare you in the face and going and drafting a running back or going and drafting a tight end or going and drafting a linebacker that ultimately doesn't pan out in past regimes. We need to get the cornerback position settled. But the thing is this. Jalen Johnson is a $16 million a year corner, like pretty much starting out market-wise. They expect this contract, and I was just looking at it just now. They expect Jalen Johnson's contract to be somewhere in the realm of what Marlon Humphrey and Denzel Ward both got at their ages, and also Jamel Dean, who got his money last offseason at the age of 26. So I think what all comes down to is, do you want to pay a corner in free agency 16, 17, maybe $18 million? Now, Jalen Johnson I kind of pumped the brakes on Jalen because it took Jalen a minute to really come into his own at corner with and at the, not university, but with the Chicago Bears. Didn't play all that well the first couple seasons in the league.
Yeah.
Got better year 3. Last year was dynamite for them. So does he also fit the scheme we want? Because he's going to stay in that. He's going to stay in a lot of deep zone. Yeah. He's not going to be able to read and react as much within what they ask their corners to do here with Detroit. So it's kind of hit or miss with the cornerback position. We see a lot of free agency cornerbacks bust out because it's real easy. One guy, and I know this ain't recent memory at all, but Nnamdi Asomugha. You remember with the
Oh yeah,
Raiders when
Raider.
he
Yeah,
left the Raiders and went to
went
a
to the Eagles. Yeah.
completely different system and wasn't the same corner. So
Hmm.
I'm not when it comes to the cornerback position, straight man corners are guys that I think can provide the versatility to play in multiple coverages. That's different
Hmm.
schemes. I'll pay those guys. So Jalen performed really well this past season. Am I still 100% sold on the fact that he can come here and do it to the point that I would give him 16 mil, 17, 18 mil? I don't know. But I mean, I'm with you. You know, he's the number one corner on the market. You look at that size, that athleticism, the amount of turnovers he was able to get this season, it puts him on the list. But, you know, is Brad Holmes going to pay that?
Right.
Now he should, considering the fact that you don't have much money wrapped up in the defense, and you still will be able to, depending on what you sign to. You're talking about also giving Jalen a 4-year deal on this open market. You
Hmm.
know, so
Yeah.
who else you got to pay on defense? You're not really worried about Jack Campbell for another few years. You're not.
Yep.
I do
Hutch.
understand you're going to pay Aiden for the most part. You're going to pay Aleem, hopefully. Outside of that, nobody else in the secondary is going to garner any money like that. So
Hmm.
you can afford to pay a corner that type of money for about a 3-year deal, 4-year deal, but will they?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then if we had to just before we kind of wrap this one up today, I mean, even the linebackers, I even went through the linebackers to see, who would be a guy that would fit our team, man. And first of all, I want to bring Jalen Reeves-Maybin back. That's number one. I mean, we signed him to a 1-year deal. Dude made the Pro Bowl as a special teams player. He was a vital role in that room, man. For the linebackers, brought some experience. I really like the way Jalen Reed-Maybin played this year. I absolutely bring him back. That's number one. Kenneth Murray is a guy. I mentioned him. I don't know how you feel about Kenneth Murray, and then Patrick Queen. I didn't know that Patrick Queen was actually available. I don't know what it would take. Walt, you got the numbers in front of you, to maybe get one of those guys. I mean, I think that Patrick Queen is like a tackling machine. I think he might have been lost in the shuffle since they got Roquan over there. I don't know. Like I said, I don't follow the Ravens football like that to know. I don't know if he's sour with the organization or how they feel about him. But man, I mean, it would be nice to get one of those two guys in. Just to, Kenneth Murray's been a guy from Oklahoma that I always liked. You know what I'm saying? Was he from Oklahoma? I think he was. There's a guy that I just thought that he was from sideline to sideline. He's an old school linebacker. And it was sort of, I don't know if he just fell out of favor with the guys, the Chargers with management, or maybe they plan on signing him. Who knows? But that would be a good get as well. You know what I mean? To have one of those guys.
market value on Patrick Queen right now is reported 18.5 mil a year. So, and that's the thing too. Like within our defense, we don't really have room for any more linebackers. So we only play 2 linebackers at a time, and we expect Jack Campbell to be on the field a whole lot more next season. Anzalone, as we mentioned, Anzalone outperformed his contract. He outperformed what you and I both thought he was going to do.
Yeah.
Last
Right.
offseason when they initially brought him back. Derek Barnes is already there. Derek Barnes has consistently got better. I would have to think that Derek Barnes is one of those guys that they plan on keeping in the fold. Malcolm Rodriguez, he's a team favorite, obviously with them. So I don't see them really touching on linebacker too much, unless it's a linebacker, probably in the NFL draft, who can play with his hand on the dirt and rush from the outside as well as play linebacker. That's why I thought a guy like Chris Braswell, who had a 13 or 14 sacks for Alabama. And you know they love Alabama. So I'm pretty sure they knew all about Will Anderson a year ago. So I'm pretty damn sure Brad Holmes knows everything about Dallas Turner. He knows everything about Chris Braswell. Yeah. So I think those are guys who can play with their hand in the dirt as well, are guys that are potentially on the board for them NFL draft wise. As you mentioned, we'll touch on the draft later on, but I think if they touch on the front seven in free agency, it's got to be defensive interior. I think that'll be it. Edge rush wise for their system, there's not too many guys out there really that fits it. Broken Tubin, who's always with us, been with us since YouTube, says under $8 million players are their target, believe, for free agency. Yeah. And I mean, we mentioned a handful of players today, guys who they can get for $3 million for 1 year. Guys, they can get another guy, defensive tackle, Taven Bryan. And Taven was with Taven spent a year with the Colts, as a matter of fact, this past season. So Taven Bryan's a guy that you can get 1 year, $2.5, $3 million, depending on what the market garners for him as well. So I agree with Broken Tubin. I think they're going to take the extra cheap approach when it comes to signing guys outside of free agency. I think Brad Holmes has made it completely settled that as a free agent, if you want to come here, you're going to take less than market value, damn near. And if you do take your market value is going to probably be somewhere between $2 and $8 million a year.
Facts.
Because we're wrapping all of our big money up in the guys that we already got here. So that's neither here nor there if we believe that approach is going to work out long term. But like I said, I just think that you and I are pretty much in agreement that we think when it comes to free agency, they're going to take a more cautious approach. And they're not going to invest a lot in guys who are big name, big money guys who could come in and not fit our system.
Facts.
Yeah, so, all right, man, anything you want to say before we wrap this up? Because we're going to be back next week and the following week with more free agency talk. When does free agency kick off? I'm going to take a look at officially.
I thought it was, I want to say March, around about the first week of March, if I'm not mistaken, like after the combine.
Yeah, because all the illegal tampering and illegal talking, illegal dialogue going to start the middle of next week.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, March 13th. Yeah, that's the new year. The new league year starts March 13th. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we got a couple weeks. You know what I mean? I think it's gonna be a very active and productive. I mean, it's gonna be like, one-stop shopping. I think a lot of teams gonna get better. You know what I'm saying? And I think the Lions will make some moves. I really do. But like I said, it's just who. You know what I mean? And what position. So I really do think biggest offseason, biggest free agent, biggest draft of this franchise history right here. You know what I'm saying? This draft right here, because it could, it's got a lot of possibilities, or, the free agency, that's not how you build your team, but it is how you keep your team stable. You know what I mean? To a point. So
yeah, I agree. It's a whole different set of issues now, because you went through 3 years you started out 3 years ago with a bare cupboard. So the set of challenges that season was getting us some damn talent. First and foremost, because remember what this team was when they first took over. Now you're looking at 3 years later, damn, we at the top of the NFC. 12-4 record. Now, how do we make sure we stay there? And I agree with you 100%. Like, Lions fans haven't seen this in the last 30 years. Not a team that we feel like can really withstand, that we have something that was really going to last. We had Stafford and Calvin for all those years, and Sue and Glover Quinn. We had really talented football teams, but nothing ever felt like it was going to stick the way things feel here. So, like, I agree with you 1,000%, man. Now this offseason, you're looking at how do we get to 14 wins? How do we make sure we get to the Super Bowl? How do we make sure over the next 10 years we're competing routinely? Because I understand from year to year time, you may have a season where you underperform and you end up a wild card team. But how do you make sure this team stays in the playoffs?
Yeah, offensive line play and key players at key spots. You know what I mean? You don't have to have 5 good corners. Just have one. You know what I'm saying?
We did. Remember the former the Eagles back in the day with Bobby Taylor and Troy Vincent and Al Harris and Lito Shepherd and
Right. It's just I mean, for me, because you either, for me, it's either you get a couple free agents, draft a couple good players, every year you have to do that. I think you have to get a couple free agents, get a couple draft picks to replenish that said position. You know what I'm saying? Get a couple free agents. You know what I'm saying? Every year you got to do it. So, and that's how you keep your team good. You know what I'm saying? Now, obviously, it's about who you pick. You know what I'm saying? And injuries and so on, and coaching changes, and this guy don't fit the system anymore, or whatever. That it's a lot of variables. But I think right now, I love that the coaches stayed. Our coaching staff is intact. I mean, we just don't have a lot of issues like other teams have right now. You know what I'm saying? We don't
Damn
have
right.
a first year head coach. We don't have a first year coordinator. We don't have a team that's searching for a quarterback. We don't have a team that just don't have nothing on the cupboard. You know what I'm saying? We got something there. You know, we look in our pantry, man, we got some good stuff in there. You know what I'm saying? We can pull out. So all we got to do is add to it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it's just going to be interesting what route this team goes because is Brad Holmes really thinking about the offensive line like we are? Is he really thinking like, damn, I need to get a
He said
cornerback?
so.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously running back, you would thinking like, man, we don't need a running back, but what if you took one in the 7th round or something if a guy becomes available? You know what I'm saying? So people just sometimes just because your team looks like it's set all the time, you do have to get a guy, that can fit your team and build down the road, like say for the next 10 years. You know what I'm saying? That's how you do it through the offensive line, through the defensive line, through, drafting. And for the most part, Brad Holmes has done that. Like you said, now is he going to get into the Chris Jones sweepstakes? That's the big question. Is he going to get into Brian Burns? Some of these bigger names that we see, not a guy
game
like
changers.
game changer guys. If that's the case, then man, if Brad Holmes sees it like we see it and he's starting to go for it, then I think we can even get more excited because he's going to be more aggressive. So, and he's not afraid to trade draft picks and, like you said, move up and down, which we're going to talk about in the draft coming up. But it's all about free agency right now. The combine's coming up, Walt. So, we want to get, start hitting that, you know what I'm saying? Because, the combine's at the end of this, I think it's the 28th through March 3rd, I think it is, or something like that. I could be off by a day, but I know it's the end of this month going into the first week of March, and then free agency starts, and then it's the draft after free agency. So,
yeah. All right, want to thank everybody for joining us today. We kept y'all for 1 hour and roughly 28 minutes, breaking down league-wide free agency and what the possible approach could be for our Detroit Lions and Brad Holmes. At the end of the day, none of us know. They always seem to shock us a lot. None of us saw last offseason the CD Deuce signing. Remember, I think we were we were actually on the air when the signing of CD came through. I believe, if not so.
Yeah, we were. Yep.
Yep. So, like I said, I want to thank everybody for joining us this Saturday morning. We will be back next week for more in-depth detailed talk about our Detroit Lions and moving forward through free agency as well as the NFL draft. Starting some of these scouting videos, breaking down some of these players, some of these names that as a Lions fan you really need to get acquainted with because you will be hearing a lot about these guys, as Ashanti mentioned, over the next few weeks, next couple of months in regards to combines, pro days, school pro days for all these players and whatnot. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. One